don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. These stories are based upon true events. Welcome to another Bigfoot Campfire Story. You know those scary movies you hear and you'll wonder if they're based on some sort of reality? Well, that's exactly what I thought when this story was told to me. Jesse and his family owned an off-grid cabin near Mount St. Helens in Washington and decided a snowy Thanksgiving is what they needed, so they loaded up with all they would need and set out for the week. This is their story. My folks and I had been coming to this cabin each winter for as long as I can remember. My dad, my mom, and my little sister Emma were on this trip, and we're all looking forward to the fun. The cabin was set up really nice. There was a huge sledding hill out back and lots of snowmobile trails to ride on. And his dad was a mechanic, so we had lots of toys out there to play with. My favorite was an old Honda 110 ATC with 3 wheels. Man, that thing was dangerous, but so much fun. Anyhow, all we had to do was bring food and get there. The rest was already in place. The drive up was about 4 hours from our town, so we made good use of it, searching for when the snowstorm would start and playing stupid car games. Dad's old Wagoneer made it there no problem, with just a couple of spots where the 4-wheel drive was needed, but we finally arrived. As usual, there was no play at first upon getting into the cabin. We had to open up the cabin, inspect it for damage, chase away any animals that might be around. Mom and Emma were opening and unloading the car, so Dad sent me around back to take the bare boards off the windows and check the roof. Well, the snow wasn't very deep yet. It was about 2 feet at this point, and I managed to get out back and get the boards down just as Dad got to the back of the house and scared the crap right out of me. Just as I took the board down, there his face was, beard and all, with a scary growl at me. Of course, I screamed like a girl. Everyone laughed at me, but I turned away just in time to catch a glimpse of what I thought was a bear. I called out to my dad, and he grabbed the shotgun and came running around the back of the house. When we trudged on over in the snow to the spot, I saw it barrel down the sledding hill. When we got over there, sure enough, there were tracks going in and out of that area. It looked well traveled. We must have a new resident that thinks this is his territory. Well, we set back towards the house to warn the girls that there's a bear around and to stay close for now. We got our stuff inside, and they got the wood stove going and warming up the cabin nicely. There was a downed tree on the other side of the house, so Dad and I grabbed the saw. We went on over to cut it away and clear that area. We noticed another well-used path on this side of the house where something had been moving around and packed the trail back and forth. Well, Dad fired up the saw and made a few cuts, and I pulled the debris out of his way. It took us about an hour of sawing, but we finally got it cleared out of the way for now. Just then, I saw Dad pick up the shotgun and run forward a little bit and shot a few rounds off, too high to hit anything. Well, I yelled out, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I saw that bear again, and I think he'll think twice about coming back around now." Well, we went inside, and just in time, as it was starting to get dusk and very cold outside. The cabin was cooking hot, and for dinner was just about ready. Mom was with it cooking on the wood stove, and beef stew was what was on it tonight. Mom will have a pot of this on the stove 24/7 till we get out of here, as it's just the best thing to warm you up. Well, we lit a few candles, and we sat around the stove drinking hot chocolate, and that's when we heard the first weird call. It was like a low wail followed by a whoop. It made us all feel uneasy, as it was so loud it sounded like it was right outside the window. Dad said it had to have been a coyote, but none like we'd ever heard before. We all kind of stayed close that first night. The next morning, Dad and I went and checked on the tracks, and they were, of course, not coyotes. For the life of us, we could not find a single tracker sign anywhere we looked. That's when Dad called me over to look at that pathway and these weird footprints, twice the size of his, and barefoot. No one, and I mean no one, has ever been seen out here in all the years we've been coming here, and certainly not barefoot this time of year. What would leave tracks like this? Well, I asked, "Bigfoot?" And all I got back was that all-knowing look like I'm a dumbass and should shut up, so I skulked off back to the cabin. Well, Dad sat out there for a little while, and then he came in to warm up. He went down into the cellar and he brought up another small shotgun and handed it to me. It was time to find out what was making those tracks, he said. So we loaded up both guns and put a few extra shells in our pockets and headed out for a long hike. Dad and I had hiked around for about 2 hours, and we hadn't seen a thing. Not a rabbit, not a deer, no signs of bear. None of that was normal for this time of year. Not even any rodents. And we had shot squirrel for days out here in the past. Finally, Dad decided it was time to head back. Dark was coming faster than we'd like. And when we got back to the cabin, we found Mom and Emma held up in the cellar. Well, Dad called down for them to come up, and they said some animals had surrounded the cabin and were whooping at them from the windows. Mom called them hairy monster people, and again I asked, Bigfoot? But this time I got the response I wasn't ready for when Mom actually yelled, yes, Bigfoot. That has to be what they were. She said they came on one at a time as if they were called here by something. The more we screamed, the louder they whooped and banged on the walls. She said they ran off just before we got here. They must have heard us coming. Well, Dad decided that was it. We are out of here. He'd come back with some family and find out just what was going on. But this was enough to put the family in danger. It was time to pack it in. Well, it was already too dark outside, and there was no way we could make it out in the dark, as the roads are just merely trails as it is. We'd have to stick it out until daybreak. Let's just hope they don't come back. Dad had Mom and Emma make it comfy down in the cellar, and they were down there reading books together, while Dad and I kept a watch out in the windows. Nothing had happened, not a sound, all night. It was getting very late. Maybe we got lucky. Well, Dad decided to take a peek outside, and he told me to stay near the door. Well, as he rounded the side of the house, that's when the very first whoop rang out again. But Dad quickly rang out a couple of shotgun rounds towards the sound, and then ran back into the cabin. Sure enough, it was only moments later when these other two things showed up. I could see them out the back window in the moonlight, as the moon was high and bright and reflecting off the snow. It was snowing outside now, with wet, heavy, large-sized flakes falling all around, and these two very big, dark-looking creatures made their way to the cabin on just 2 legs. They walked kind of strange, like they were floating on the snow, their knees never going straight. Both very tall, ducking under limbs both Dad and I passed under earlier in the day. The closer they got, the more detail you could see, and the strange sloping head, longer gangly arms that hung past the mid-thigh and down towards the middle of the waist. They took very long strides as they closed the distance, even in 3 feet of snow now, in no time, and began peering in the window at us. The faces were covered in hair except the eyes, the nose, and the lips. Very large eyes and the openings, and a dominant ridge over the eyebrows. And then I saw very, very big hands as one of them put his palm on the window and pushed off to walk away. Well, Dad whispered to me to climb down the stairs with Mom and protect them. Should they get past him, I knew what would come next, so I did as I was told. I took guard over the opening, and then I heard a slam on the front door. Whatever they were out there surely wanted in here with us. Well, Dad started to scream at it to go away, but that just made the one at the back window start to bang on the back wall in turn, and then the one at the door bang harder and harder until finally I heard the shotgun ring out once more. Everything went silent. Dad told me to come up out of the cellar and cover the back window. If they came back, to shoot it. Well, as I got to the top of the stairs, I saw the front window was now broken in, and there was some blood on the wall. Dad must have hit at least one of them. Well, it was now getting cold in the cabin, so we stoked up the wood stove as much as we could. Finally, we noticed that the sun was rising on the horizon. We had finally survived it. Well, it seemed like it took forever for the sun to finally rise enough to see outside, and when we did, we could see a blood trail leading off from the cabin. Dad threw the goals up from the cellar, and we quickly loaded up the Wagoneer, and we were on our way out. Well, it had snowed nearly 2 feet that night, and now we had to take our time going out through the trails. Every now and then we noticed the blood would cross back and forth across the road. Well, that was enough for Dad, and he picked up the pace a bit, got us down the mountain as fast but as safe as he could. Mom and Emma were very shaken, but okay in talking. Myself, I was very confused as Bigfoot was no longer a myth for our family, and Dad just quietly drove the truck. Finally, Mom asked, "What do we tell people happened?" And Dad replied, "Animal attack, and that'll be enough, or we'll be labeled crazy people, and no thanks to that." So that's how we treated it, and we came home early because of an animal attack, and we didn't feel like talking about it. Most people let it drop. I remember a very short time after that, he sold that cabin, as is, where is, contents included, and someone bought it up fast. That was the last we ever saw of that place, and I can't say I'll miss it. Jesse and his family found out firsthand what happens when Bigfoot claims your property. Well, your property becomes their property, and that's just the way it is. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.